I'm Tess, if you don't know me, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite genre of romance, which is hockey romance. So in the past 3 years, I have read 13 hockey romance and some that are like subgenre hockey romance, and I cannot even tell you the love that I have found for hockey through this. I now am an avid Toronto Maple Leafs fan and know more about the game than most of my family. I wouldn't say I know everything because I've never played and I've only been watching hockey for like 2 years, but I am absolutely obsessed with the sport, to say the very least, and now obsessed with hockey romance. The two happened kind of at the same time. I read Icebreaker and was like, I really loved this hockey romance. Let me start watching hockey. And as I watched hockey, I wanted to read more hockey romance. And as hockey season dwindled, I didn't want to miss that feeling, so I started reading even more hockey romance. So today, here we are, 13 hockey romance books in, and I'm going to be counting down from my least favorite to my favorite hockey romance that I've read and giving you guys an in-depth review and idea of the plot of all of these books. So let's get right into it. So the first books that I want to talk about are not included in the 13, and those are my honorable mentions, which are Wildfire and Daydream by Hannah Grace. Obviously, Icebreaker is somewhere in here, but Hannah Grace is one of my biggest inspirations as a romance author, and I just think her work is really whimsical and balanced and casual, but still has that emotional depth and lightheartedness that you want a rom-com to have, lovable characters and exciting twists and turns, I think. And I just genuinely love these two books, and I don't classify them as hockey romance because no hockey is actually played in these two novels. There is a little bit of hockey that's played in Daydream, he goes to practice, but comparatively to Icebreaker, which is completely about hockey and ice skating, these two just don't really I wouldn't call them hockey romance, even though there's hockey players in them, if that makes sense. So these books are strictly books in which hockey is played, or there is a team aspect of the novels. Wildfire by Hannah Grace is the second in the Maple Hill series, and it is about Aurora and Russ as they go work at a summer camp. Super cute. And then Daydream is about Henry and Haley, or Hallie, and they have their own little cutesy romance. But definitely read Icebreaker first because it's fun to see how the characters fall into line. But yeah, these are my honorable mentions. Hockey romances, but also not hockey romances, and just books that I love. Okay, number 13 on the list is not going to be a book that I recommend, so take this with a grain of salt, and that is Meet Me at the Penalty Box by Callie Mel. This book, I think I was just in a hockey romance void or in a reading slump, and hockey romances tend to get me out of reading slumps, so I was just okay, perfect, I will just read this hockey romance. And I thought it was, I wouldn't say horrible. I rated it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think now looking back on it, I would give it a 2. It is just a very forgettable book and a very standard storyline when it comes to hockey romances. The main female character is the sports, the photographer for the hockey team, and then the main male character is the star player of the team that he plays for, and he is a reformed player, and their relationship is off limits, forbidden love, kind of enemies to lovers, but they're not really enemies. They just bicker at each other. I don't really remember that much about the plot, and I really just don't think it is worth your time. So just so you know, out of the 13 ones that I've read, number 13 is Meet Me at the Penalty Box by Callie Mel. No shade to Callie Mel though, because I did read one of her Christmas novellas last year and I did really like it. I just feel this book was way more smut than story, and though it seems like most romances are like that these days, I can attest that that is not the truth, and that is not what every girl wants. Sometimes we want a little bit of build-up chemistry and fluff to go with our smut. Now, the next one is probably going to shock a lot of people, but number 12 is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is the first hockey romance that I ever read, and I was not intending to read it because it was a hockey romance. I was intending to read it because it was 2021 peak book talk, and Elle Kennedy was all over my For You page. I used to have the physical copy, but I gave it away because I just never reached for it again. It is, once again, very standard hockey trope. Star hockey player, smart girl. I think they were study partners or something, which is laughable because I have so many of these on here. But I just feel The Deal was just very two-dimensional, and I literally never thought about it again. And Elle Kennedy has written some of the other books that I have read. I don't know if you can see, oh yeah, right here. The Paper Princess trilogy by Aaron Watt is actually Elle Kennedy in connection with another person. And the only reason I still have these books is because sometimes I read them to know what a bad book feels like. And also because they're like trashy, dumpster fire you can't look away from type of book. And I've actually been thinking about rereading them. So maybe I'll do a whole video about reading books that I know are bad, just to read them. But anyways, The Deal by Elle Kennedy, in my opinion, as a hockey romance connoisseur, super overrated. Not worth your time. If you're getting into romance, maybe. If you're trying to get into hockey romance, no. Now, the next book I'm going to talk about, I will say I did not read the first one in this series because I didn't realize that it was a interconnected standalone series. I read The Shutout by Avery Keelan, and this is very clearly a person who likes reading hockey romance that wrote a hockey romance. I didn't think there was very much depth in the novel. It's basically about this, I think he's a defenseman, who lives with his teammate, and his teammate's sister now decided she wants to go to their college, and so she moves in with him. So it's roommate and brother's best friend's sister romance, or brother's best friend romance. And I just thought, once again, it was very two-dimensional. I didn't really see worth in reading it, and when I went back through my Storygraph to see the hockey romances that I've read, this one just completely slipped my mind. But I did find it more interesting than The Deal and then Meet Me at the Penalty Box kind of style of writing. I think Avery Keelan probably has potential. I did also read this really quickly because I was like so over it and wanted to get through it. Somebody probably would love it, but it's definitely not my favorite. Pretty sure I rated it like 3 stars, and 3 stars for me is like, it was good, but I would not recommend it to another person. And by good, I mean like the very basic, like very mid, like good, if that makes sense. My rating scale is kind of messed up. I'm going to try working on it as I film more videos and give you like a clear, concise, this is how I rate my books. But also like, this is a completely opinion-based side of YouTube and side of life in general. This is me reviewing books on how I feel about them. So I need to just like stop rambling and not worry about how you guys feel about how I talk about a book. If you don't like it, don't keep watching. But if you do care about my opinion, skip this one. The next book I've seen actually a lot on TikTok, and I read it because of that reason, and I was in a huge hockey romance reading mood. Last year I was like, I'm going to read 10 hockey romances, and I did, and this was one of them. And so I was reading it just to set the goal of reading 10 hockey romances, and not necessarily because I thought it was good. And that is Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. She has like a whole series on this team. I just really don't remember that much about it. I had to look up the plot again and look at my review, but basically it's like a grumpy goalie who needs an assistant, and then it happens to be someone that he went to high school with, I'm pretty sure, and they like fall in love. It's like it's Grumpy Sunshine, not Reverse Grumpy Sunshine. And I really don't remember anything else other than the fact that they like have very heated intercourse due to the fact that he is grumpy all the time. So I don't really know if y'all are vibing with that. It's, again, super two-dimensional. And I know I'm saying that like I'm not talking about hockey romance, but as we go through, you will learn that there are 3-dimensional hockey romances that encapsulate so much more. And that is why I feel like I can tell you to skip the 2-dimensional hockey romance and continue to watch this video so that you can hear about 3-dimensional hockey romance. Anyways, Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer, relatively good. Haven't read the rest of the series, so maybe if I read more of them, I would like them. But consider this me telling you very mid, 2-dimensional, straightforward hockey romance. Okay, now the next book I'm going to talk about is Offside Heart by Nikki Lawson. And one of the only things that I remember about this book is the sexual chemistry of the characters in the book, but I don't really remember the plot. It is also a like social media like running person. What is that even called? Like a media specialist for the team. Someone on the media team who falls for the player not supposed to kind of thing. I'm 99% sure. I think it's better than the other ones just because I do remember like laughing at what was happening in the book and remembering the chemistry and just thinking that the characters were definitely lovable. But much like the other 4 books I've talked about, this one is very 2-dimensional, and the character is just like a carbon copy like player, and then the girl is like, I take pictures of hockey players but I hate hockey kind of girl. So skip this one. We have more coming that you'll like better. The next book is actually kind of shocking that this is low on the list, but there are, from 8 up, there are really good hockey romances that I am going to gush and talk about. This is Play With Me by Becca Mack. Now, this book was honestly the most three-dimensional one I've talked about so far. The characters have trauma that they're actively working through, they're emotionally unavailable but become available, and they are just like, I don't know. Jenny and Garrett, it is, I can't remember what this series is called, but it is a part of Becca Mack's series. It's the second book in the series, and it follows Garrett, who is on the team. He's a forward, I think. Not that it really matters, but I care. And then Jenny, who is the captain of the team, Carter's little sister. And Jenny is, like, watching Garrett's apartment for him and living there, like, watching his, like, dog, I think, or, like, just taking care of his apartment for him while he is away. And then they, like, end up living together because she, like, moves in there. And they are having this, like, friends with benefits style of relationship. And there's, like, a key aspect of their, like, sexual relationship that I won't, like, spoil, but it is something that was really interesting to me. The other books that I'm about to talk about, I liked significantly more, but I will say I still really enjoyed Play With Me. I think I rated it 4.5 stars, and it was just really beautiful, and the way that he treats her is really beautiful, and the found family in this series in general is just, like, absolutely phenomenal. So definitely read this. Just because it is number 8 does not mean it is not worth the read. It's just there are about to be 7 other hockey romances that I happen to like a little bit more than this one. The next one I'm going to talk about is Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. I read this while I was in London, and I was, once again, itching for a hockey romance, and it's one of 2 that I read this year. And this book was forgettable to me for a while, but I think it was because, like, I was in a really busy time in my life, so I didn't really register the effect that it would have had on me. And if I were to read it again, I think it would have had a bigger effect on me. But Unsteady by Peyton Corinne is about a hockey player, and he is, like, injured, and he's coming back from, like, a super mega injury, but every time he gets on the ice, he has, like, a panic attack and gets really stressed, and, like, he doesn't know how to control his emotions. And then he meets a girl, and this girl teaches him how to control his emotions, like, through music. She's also going through stuff in her own life. I really like the musical element because one day when I finally finish my book and have beta readers start reading it, it's finished. I'm nitpicky and I want to make it better. But the first draft is complete. It is a completed novel. I really like the musical aspect because in my novel, I also have a musical aspect. It's obviously heavier than in a hockey romance because it's a band romance, but I just really enjoyed that. And the songs that she picked were super cute. And I think it's really good to go into the story blind about, like, anything. Obviously, I just told you, like, parts of the plot, but just, like, no inhibitions. Like, don't even think about it as a hockey romance. Just think about it as someone who has, like, a career triggered PTSD, and I think you will definitely really enjoy it. One of the 3-dimensional hockey romances I've been talking about that were on the way, and I just think that the way that it balances mental health and family and, like, dysfunctional family situations, I think is really beautiful. And so if you can relate to any of those things, I would definitely recommend Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. Now, the next book I'm going to talk about is literally a book that I finished yesterday, and it is Fall With Me by Becca Mack. It is the newest in the series. I'm going to put the name of the series right here because I was going to look it up before, and I completely forgot. But Fall With Me follows defenseman Jackson Riley, who has been recently traded to the Vancouver team, and he is, like, really nervous because he's been traded, like, a lot throughout time. And then it follows Lennon, who is a runaway bride. She is a runaway bride, and they meet on her honeymoon, or what would have been her honeymoon, and they have this one-night stand, and then they're reintroduced to each other's lives again. This is, I will say, a player bad boy hockey romance with a social media she, like, works for the team, photographer, whatnot, but it is 3-dimensional. The characters, their entire lives are not playing hockey and doing social media for the team. They are so much more. It becomes a forced proximity romance and a friends with benefits style, and like I said, the found family in this series is just absolutely wonderful and wrapped together with a bow. The spicy side of the book and the emotional depth are perfectly balanced in my opinion. It is very, very spicy, but the book is really long also, and so you get all of those, like, emotional romantic scenes combined with the spicy side of the scenes. So I will say, if you're one to skip smut when you're reading a novel, this one might be a little bit harder because things are like tied together. The next book is also by Becca Mack, and it is Unravel Me. Now, this book really surprised me. So I read Consider Me and I read Play With Me, and then last December, the last book that I read of 2023, wow, was Unravel Me by Becca Mack. But when I first started reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a single mom romance, not really my vibe. But I continued because I loved Becca Mack's writing in the first two books, and I was like, there has to be like let me give it a chance, because normally I'm like one to turn away from them. But I gave it a chance and I really liked it. It is the most three-dimensional emotionally hockey romance that I've ever read. It is so wonderful, and just like, I think as I grow older, single dad and single mom romances don't bother me as much, because seeing someone interact with someone else's child and like learning to love that child, I think is really beautiful. And also just the emotional trauma that these characters have and the weight of their actions just felt a lot heavier. I definitely recommend this book for anyone who is looking for an emotional romance. It is a hockey romance, but there's like a cute little subplot aspect. I think it's really cute, and it does take place in the off season, so it's a little bit different than like a typical hockey romance, but they do play hockey and it is still a huge part of the story. So definitely recommend Unravel Me. It is my third favorite in the series. I like, it's like based on ranking them of like if I think they're good kind of thing, mixed with my opinion, but I would say Unravel Me is my third favorite, even though it is higher than Fall With Me. The next book, surprise, surprise, is Consider Me by Becca Mack, which is my favorite in the series. Consider Me is just so cute, and I can't even remember how Carter and Olivia meet, unfortunately, but their chemistry after they meet is just immediately like off the charts. Like, she is just so done with him, and he is just so unapologetically in love with this girl that he literally doesn't know anything about. Carter is like one of the funniest characters that I've ever seen in a romance like series. Like, his character throughout the rest of the books just makes me laugh really hard, and the emotional depth once again that both of the characters go through is just super like well-rounded and well-written in my opinion. This is, I would say, the most sexual of all the books, which is surprising because two of them are like a friends with benefits, no attachment type of book, but this book just like, it's how the characters show their love. It's clearly like about a physical touch style of relationship. I really enjoyed Carter and Olivia. I think their banter is so cute. I think Carter is so cute, and I just found myself giggling the whole book, and just, I don't know, just read the series. If the books being in like the top half of this ranking doesn't sway you, like, please, I'm begging you to at least read Consider Me, because I absolutely adored it. And my sister-in-law, or future sister-in-law, Megan, she also really enjoyed these books, and every time we talk about hockey romance, this is the first book that we're talking about. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually the debut novel. Unsteady was also a debut novel. This is a debut novel, and it is called Collide by Bal Cabra. I think I'm saying that right. And I picked this up because someone said, if you liked Icebreaker, read this. So here we are. And Collide was just, I don't know, it scratched the itch that I needed for the constant thoughts of Icebreaker, and I just cannot thank it enough. Like, genuinely, in my heart and soul, it filled the void, and I am now needing to fill a void of both of these books. Basically, it's about this girl and this guy, and the girl is a sports psychology major, and to graduate, she needs to do like a thesis on a specific sport. And this player gets in trouble for something, or like takes the fall for something, and is forced to be this girl's test subject, but she hates hockey. Like, she was really hoping she was going to get basketball or a different sport, because she just absolutely despises hockey. And so their relationship starts off on a rocky foot because neither of them want to be there. It is super cute. I really enjoyed it. If you like the academia style of sports romance, I definitely recommend it. This is what I get for filming in my basement. I feel like it's almost done. If you can hear that, I'm really sorry. I'll try to make it go quiet. But Yeah, Collide was super cute. And if you liked The Deal, you'd probably like Collide because it has that similar academia aspect. I just thought the writing of Collide was much better and had more relatable characters and relatable thoughts and processes, but it is a typical romance. I think it does have some emotional depth, but I think it's in the top 3 simply because I love it. And my number 1 will not surprise anyone based on this number 3. My number 2 is probably one of the most insane books I've ever read in my life, and one of the books that I should go to the grave without talking about it. But what is the fun in that, right? So the book that I'm going to be talking about for number 2 is Pucking Around by Emily Rath. Now, I picked this book up because I love hockey romance, and Pucking Around includes also the novella, which is called That One Night, to read before reading Pucking Around. I think it just sets up the chemistry for the characters very, very well, and just sets up the significance of the relationship when the character gets there. I think it is hilarious. It is a polyamorous romance, which I think is something really interesting that is not actively represented in the romance community, and something that I'm personally very familiar with. I don't identify as polyamorous. I just know a lot of people who are, and I just really enjoyed the concept of the novel. And it's really long for a romance. Like, this is it right here, and it's thick. It's like 500 or 600 pages, and the thing that I love is that each individual relationship is solidified throughout the story, whereas in most reverse harems it's just like thrown at you that it's a reverse harem. And so I think going into it blind and not knowing that that was what it was going to be was really shocking to me, because every relationship was just so solidified. I thought it was going to be a love triangle, and then it wasn't, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I definitely think it has earned its spot in my earned its number 2 spot in my ranking, just because I think about it quite often, and I just think about the significance that it had on the way that I read books and the way that I view relationships in books, and also just the way that I now feel like it's one of the only romances that isn't just a romance between 2 people, or a reverse harem where there's no relationship. It's just like she likes to have intercourse with all of them, and it's just like more significant than that, and really helped me understand more like what being polyamorous would be like. So I definitely recommend it. And my number 1, which may come as a shock to many because I feel like a lot of people think this book is overrated, is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Now, I think you probably could have figured this out like 5 books ago. Icebreaker was, I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd hockey romance I ever read, and I saw it all over TikTok when it was indie published, and I was just like, I need to read this book. It looks so adorable, it looks so cute. And here we are. And I read the traditionally published version, and I've read the 2nd and the 3rd novel in the series, and I just simply cannot get enough. Stassi and Nathan, to me, like, it's not even my favorite book in the Maple Hill series. Let me just say that right now. It's my favorite book, but I don't think it's the best one. So let me preface my number 1 opinion by saying it is because it is my favorite, not because objectively I think it's the best. Icebreaker is my favorite hockey romance because I think it perfectly encapsulates the dream hockey captain. He is goofy and silly and sunshiny and willing to do anything that he can for his team. He reminds me of like Mitch Marner or Trevor Zegras, and I can visibly see him as hockey players that I know and love. Not know, but like, parasocial relationship type beat. And I also love Stassi. I think that she is very strong-willed, and just the fact that she put up with so much shit without like a second thought, and needed someone else to tell her, like, you don't have to put this up with this, is something that I think I really relate to. Just like feeling like I have to do everything that someone asks me to do, and then needing someone else to be like, you can say no sometimes, or you're not supposed to be treated like that, I think is a super interesting concept. Every person that I've told to read Icebreaker, if you're any of my sorority sisters who have asked me for a romance recommendation, or you're my coworker or my sister, you know this is the book that I recommend to everyone, and I just cannot express to anyone enough how much that book affected me and how much it grew my love for reading, even though I already had one. Like, I feel like it just like sparked a new love for reading, newfound love for reading within me, and I am itching to reread it since reading Daydream this year. And I love it. And I will forever say that it is my favorite hockey romance because as basic and as typical as it is the blueprint for me. And I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I loved Icebreaker. And if I talk about it for too long, I might cry. Alrighty, friends, thank you so much for spending 25 minutes listening to me talk about hockey romances. If you ever need more recommendations or have more recommendations, please let me know down in the comments below. I hope this gave you 13 new books to read, or at least like 1 or 2 if you're an avid hockey romance reader like me. If you need romance suggestions for specific players, I am also very familiar with the NHL and the love that people have for individual players. So often when I read them, I think about the personas and characters, the personas and real life people that may match the aesthetic of the character. Please let me know if you have any book video recommendations down below. I'm planning on being more active now that I'm in my last semester of college and have a little bit more free time in my sorority life. So if you have any more recommendations for videos you'd like to see, or you just want to see more of me, click the link down below and follow me on Instagram and on my book talk. Subscribe, like, comment what your favorite book in this video was, or if there's a book that you're wanting to read. And I will see you in my next video. I hope you have a great day, and I love you if no one else has said it. Mwah.